Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by Fans for Fans. This is your host Cody Potter. How y'all doing today? So today we're going to start with a Q&A real quick. Had a question from KLNT10. Appreciate the question, man. I'd like to do a lot more Q&As and things like that, man. Anybody who watches the pod, man, I'd appreciate it. Question anything you want to know about the Commanders, scouting, anything, college football, whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be the Commanders. I'm willing to answer any questions. The question was, what do you think about Kane Madranu's development? Do you think he'll get more snaps this year, or can he get converted to a safety? So my assessment on Kane Madranu, just before we get into OTAs and things like that, man, my assessment for Kane Madranu is, first and foremost, man, I think, unless you have some kind of astronomical development, which I always thought when we took him, Ken Norton definitely knew about him at UCLA. I think it was always going to be a 2-3 year project before you really see him on the field, at least consistently, more so special teams early. Very, very fast, very, dynamic as far as speed, explosiveness, and things like that. But the biggest thing for me was a converted wide receiver at UCLA, but Ken Norton Jr., knew him at UCLA, worked with him at UCLA, coached him at UCLA, prioritized drafting him here in the fifth, sixth round. For me, if Kane Madranu's on the field this year playing meaningful snaps, and it's not because of, a really astronomical, peak in his development, I think there was a lot of traits and things that he needed to work on, specifically tackling and things like that. We saw missed tackles and things like that last year in preseason. To me, with the additions of Leo Chenal, having Frankie Louvu, Jordan McGee, Sonny Styles being your, 7th overall pick, if Kane Madranu's on the field and it's not because of a developmental, ascension, I think there's going to be packages for him. There's a coverage ability and coverage trait that he does have naturally that I do feel like, you can see it at UCLA. I was a really big fan of Carson Schlesinger, who ended up being the Defensive Rookie of the Year last year, going into last year's draft. If anybody was paying attention, going into the draft during the draft process, that was my number one linebacker, and he ended up being Rookie of the Year. Again, Kane Madranu played next to him, and he was definitely a coverage linebacker, but a little bit of a liability in the, in the consistency, the technical standpoint of tackling and things like that. I do think he can play, kind of like that nickel, big safety, coverage kind of backer role. I do think there's an opportunity for him to show that, especially with guys like Frankie Louvu on this roster, maybe even Jordan McGee, who I do think is actually a plus level coverage guy. Still needs some refinement in that category, but as far as the focus on him has always been kind of, being the green dot, kind of taking over for Bobby Wagner. Of course, you pick a Sonny Styles. I think that mold is going to shift, and I think it's actually going to be good for Jordan McGee in the long-term scope for what he projects to be for this team. I think him being an off-ball linebacker, not having the green dot responsibilities, I think that's actually going to go further for him being more of a, if they're in the 3-4 set, he'll be another inside linebacker. Leo Chenal is a wild card. He's kind of a D-end outside linebacker hybrid player. Can line up inside. Was never really brought here to be the green dot player, but I think Leo Chenal is going to get a lot of run. I think Frankie Louvu and everything that he brings to the table, I think he's going to get a lot of run. So I think there is unless there's like a crazy offseason development, Kane Madranu on this team, him getting meaningful snaps this year means that there's something probably went wrong. That doesn't mean he's not going to get more snaps, and I hope he does earn more snaps. I think he has the skill set to earn more snaps, and especially in certain packages and things like that for coverage and things like that, where he does excel. That's where you want to see him take the leap. And I do agree. He is more of a safety kind of hybrid, linebacker kind of player. He's 220 coming out of college. I'm sure he's put on some weight now. He's probably somewhere in the 230. 235 range, or at least you hope, because he needed to put on some muscle to his frame and things like that. But the 4.4 speed is there, the coverage ability is there. He's got to clean up the tackling, and I think the biggest thing for him is going to be the reports that we hear out of training camp and things like that. KLNT, I do appreciate the question. I wanted to start there before I got into the OTAs and things like that. So 2 OTAs. So One thing that really, really stuck out to me before I'm going to even get into it, and it was somebody that was here, is Laramie Tunsil, man. Laramie Tunsil being here. I think the funny thing is, man, is, you traded the picks for this guy. You wanted him to be a leader. You wanted him to be a veteran in the locker room. I think the funny thing is the Washington Commanders basically traded for the version of Laramie Tunsil that the Houston Texans were hoping to get from him. Stepping up, being a leader and things like that. Him being present at, voluntary OTAs is a step in the right direction, man, for this team. I think this team knows that they're much more talented than a 5-win team last year. A lot of factors went into that, and we know how the season went. We're not going to get into that. What it is about for me is Laramie Tunsil being here, being present, being a leader. I do want to see him continue to work with Josh Connerly Jr. because I think Josh Connerly Jr. is going to take a huge step, ascension-wise. I was very, very high on Josh Connerly Jr. Him and Laramie Tunsil as your bookend tackles. It's a very, very good thing going forward for this team, and we need it for this team. I mean, Laramie Tunsil is a very, 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 very sound technician. For as big of a guy as he is, you think there would be this nasty mean streak, for the Rashawn Slaters of the world, somebody that I'm very, very high on in the league. Penny Sewells, the Lane Johnsons. I love Nick Cross. I love Cross, the tackle out there in Seattle. The biggest thing for me is I think Laramie Tunsil is I was expecting top 3 offensive tackle play. I think we very much got that last year when I watched him play on tape, showing the all 22 from the Giants game. That was just the easiest cut up for me for this segment. I think we have a top 3, potentially even top tier tackle in the NFL. The face of the position. His refinement, his technique, the way that he plays, for as strong as he is in his base and his feet, and just how he never oversets and gets out of balance. I love Laramie Tunsil. He's everything and more that you hope for. Being here present for OTAs doesn't really mean anything, but if you get another season out of him, another couple seasons out of him like you got last year, moving forward, you're always going to be in the contract situation with him. He's kind of like a 1 year, 2 year kind of guy. He signs contracts like that. He's his own agent. He constantly resets the market, but you know what you're getting from this guy as a player. And him doing those contracts is something that probably keeps him motivated. Him being here in off-season workouts when he's not typically present for any team that he's been with just speaks to the leadership, and I think the buy-in that we have in this locker room. I think everybody was present yesterday, which is going to lead me to kind of my next segment right here. We're just going to kind of play some clips from the OTA section. Not really highlighting on anything that I'm talking about, but just for the show in the background. But so I'm going to talk about Terry. They're talking about him, catching the ball away from his frame. There's a narrative about him being a body catcher. There kind of is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, his catch rate is very, very good. Terry's always worked on something in every all season to get better in some nuance of his game. I trust Terry. Terry's a hell of a player. There was a really, really good catch from him on over Amik Robinson yesterday in 11-on-11. There was a very, very similar play right before that to Treylon Burks on the sideline. Some have reported he was out of bounds. Some have reported he got both feet in bounds. Whatever it is, Treylon Burks is very, very talented. And, there's a role for this guy. He's not going to take the top off of any defense, but the physical nature is there. It took him a little while to develop at Arkansas. But when he did develop and he finally, took his skill set and played to his skill set at Arkansas, man, there was a very, very good productive player there. I loved him coming out in the draft. I thought he would be much better. Injuries haven't really been favorable to him. Can he learn how to fall to the ground when he goes up to catch the ball away from his frame? Because he lands hard. He's a big guy. When he goes up and catches the ball away from his frame, he's coming down very, very hard on that frame. So again, there's a lot of things that go with that. You saw the clip of Jaden kind of like booking out to his right, hitting Naomi Brown in the flat. That's something that I expect. You're going to see this year, man. Naomi Brown had a chemistry with Jaden Daniels, and I think you're going to see that chemistry even grow. I like the fact that Jaden Daniels is going to be under center more this year. I think it's going to be more beneficial to him as a quarterback. I think it's going to allow him to see more things from the quarterback position and open things up more stylistically that are going to leave him to be able to hit the wide receivers and trust his wide receivers. Ultimately, chemistry is going to be the biggest thing for this season going forward. This is the time of the year where you build that chemistry. It's nice to see, the Antonio Williams, the Treylon Burks, and the guys like this making the plays already in the offseason. You heard Marcus Mariota, if you paid attention to any of the interviews and things like that from the local media yesterday. Marcus Mariota was raving kind of about Antonio Williams. I think we're going to hear from Antonio Williams probably from the podium before the OTAs are finished. You heard from a lot of guys yesterday as far as Mikey Sainristil, Javon Kinlaw. We got some motherfuckers. Pardon his language, pardon my language, but I'm excited for this defense, man. There's a lot of size, there's a lot of explosive ability, man. There's a lot of diverse skill sets on this team. I've always been a hybrid player kind of guy. There's got to be a precise position that they specialize in before the hybrid thing even comes into play. You got to be great at one thing before you can be really good at other things. That's always been my niche with hybrid players. If you're like Jalen Petrie, a guy that I was really, really high on, he does all the nuances of the strong safety position, but that he can cover and play the nickel and things like that. It's got to be that. You got to be great at one thing before you can be good at all of them. Because if you're not great at the one, then realistically, man, like you have weaknesses throughout all the positions, and it's really hard to find a position for you. We've kind of seen that in certain elements of Quan Martin's game, where you've seen him great in one facet, struggle here, and then it kind of, defenses kind of do what they can to, offenses are smart in the NFL, man. Coordinators know what they're doing. To get a player in a position where a player struggles is what these coaches are constantly looking for from week to week with all these teams. So if you're not great at something before you're good at other things, these NFL coordinators will exploit those weaknesses. Seeing the new additions, man. Nick Cross, a guy that I'm very, very excited about. Odafe Owe, man, his size, watching him stretch, it stands out. Like he's a really talented player. I'm very, very excited to see Odafe Owe here, man. Caleb Chason is a guy that I expect that's going to look really, really good in games. Maybe doesn't really flash in practice kind of thing. He's all motor kind of thing. You're not really going to see him until the tackling and the pads come on. Charles Omenihu, the size, man, stands out to me. Like the size that they have brought in, the youth that they have brought in, it's something that I'm really, really looking forward to see this team looking much more faster on both sides of the ball, but especially that defense, man, on all three levels. All three levels need to be better. I think we have players on the back end, and I thought we had players on the back end that could win last year. They upgraded that with Nick Cross coming in. I think another year of Mikey Sainristil still being a pro. I think we're in for a dynamic year from Mikey Sainristil, man. And I agree the same thing with Trey Amos whenever he's fully back from his injury. I think Jaden Daniels is a one of one, man. I think the league is going to really, really find out what a quarterback with Jaden Daniels' skill set, not playing in a college offense, playing in a Kyle Shanahan, that Shanahan root offense, what the whole league is trying to get to ultimately. Having a quarterback like Jaden Daniels who can win as a quarterback, a pure quarterback, but then also has elite level legs outside of that. If he plays within the system and then only uses his legs for certain nuances and variations of this offense, we could see a turning of the guard for what teams are looking for and how teams want to deploy the quarterback position going forward. And if he plays the quarterback position the way that it needs to be played, from the pocket and outside the pocket as a quarterback throwing the ball down the field with his eyes down the field, what he is going to do as a runner is going to be deadly, because teams are not going to be able to defend it. And this has been the vision for me with Jaden Daniels by year 3 the whole time for me. I appreciate Cliff, kept him comfortable. Jaden Daniels was able to come into the league and find a comfort. I think all the reports are he's looking good. He's got complete command. That's something I would expect from Jaden Daniels and the work ethic that he has. But again, it's got to translate to wins on Sunday, man. Ultimately, if you're not winning on Sundays, it doesn't really matter, man. There are no trophies for second place, and there's only one win. There's only 2 things you can do: win, lose, or tie. And you don't want to do either of the second 2, man. You got to win. And ultimately, I think we have the guys and the horses to be able to win. Chikakonkwo, I think you see some explosive level ability, seeing him doing inside-out routes and things like that, man. Like, that's not something that you see from typically from the tight end position, man. I think he's got that wide receiver background. He's got a wide receiver skill set, but he's got kind of on the smaller end of a tight end, but he's got the tight end body and size, to kind of complement it. So I think he's going to be a versatile weapon, and I think we're going to see some flash from him. Apparently Bill wasn't practicing, so there's this play right here to Rashad White out in the flat. I think Rashad White is going to feast in this offense, especially as a pass catcher. We know what he is as a blocker. I think Rashad White is going to bring a veteran leadership to this, running back room. I expect Kaytron Allen to look really, really good in this offense, man. I think he's going to get he's going to be really good behind this offensive line in the zone blocking scheme. I think Bill Jacory Krosky-Merritt is going to be really good behind this line in the zone blocking scheme. Not that we didn't already have the zone blocking scheme, but we're getting completely into zone blocking. It's not going to just be man match and zone that zone gap scheme. It's going to be guys pulling and things like that constantly, and I think it fits every one of these offensive linemen that we do have. It's going to fit all the running backs that we have in this backfield. Ultimately, the running backs got to step up because that's going to be the biggest impact position for this team for the success of Jaden Daniels and his development as a quarterback, because the offense is truly designed to run the football. And if these guys are not excelling in hitting the yards and getting the yards that are there on the tough yards, they're not going to play, because somebody in that backfield is going to hit the yards and get the yards that they can play. And I know Kaytron Allen will be that guy if worse comes to worse. And that's whatever. And I think Kaytron Allen is a hell of a back in his own right. Is he going to break the 50, 60, 70-yard runs? No. But I'm telling you, this dude has amazing contact balance. I mean, I'm not saying Marshawn Lynch, but that is the way that he plays, man. Very, very good contact balance. Very, very good and decisive through the hole. Will run through every arm tackle. If you are not squaring this guy up, he is going to continue to run that ball and turn the ball forward, and he's going to fall forward for whatever, is there for him available. So again, I'm very, very excited for this offense. It's nice to see these guys back. It's nice to see everybody here. We don't have all the narratives that we had last year in the offseason with the Terry contract and things like that. Guys not being here. Laramie Tunsil is here. As I said, I highlighted that early in the show because it's something that I think is very, very critical for this team. Coming off a 5-win season, it's year 3 for Dan Quinn. It's put up or shut up. The coordinators are new, but there's no excuses by the time that the games start when it come season. First time, play callers, it really doesn't matter, man. So again, I'm very, very excited to see what this team does. I'm very, very excited for the playmakers that this team has added. I'm excited for the players that have been here and that are going to continue to develop on this roster that Adam Peters has drafted, because those are identity players. The long-term, free agent signings that we have made, even though it hasn't been a ton of them, they are identity players for this team. At least they have a projected value for this team going forward until we have drafted their replacements and things like that moving forward. Adafe Owe is a long-term commitment on this team. Sam Cosmi, even though he was here before Adam Peters, is a long-term commitment for this team. Terry McLaurin, a read-up player that was already here, a long-term commitment for this team, at least until you find his replacement. But I do believe Terry, the way that he plays and the way that he takes care of business, the way that he is in the locker room, I believe he is here for the remainder of his career and basically the whole, variation of his career. I believe he's going to be a leader to Antonio Williams. I think Antonio Williams is going to thrive having a guy like Terry McLaurin in the locker room to kind of be able to fall on. Luke McCaffrey, man, I think the opportunity is there for this guy. That outside position between him and Treylon Burks and Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson is a very, very good route runner in his own right. The floor for the wide receiver position is much higher than last year. We are not talking about the same wide receivers that we were talking about last year, man. Like last year, there was a real fall off after Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel was a gadget guy, and that we never even got to really see it until the end of the season. By then, Jaden Daniels wasn't even healthy. We've seen Daomi Brown on this team with Jaden Daniels. It might not be the same offense, but we know what he can give you. Daomi Brown does not have to be a consistent, 5-catch-a-game kind of guy. He doesn't even have to be a big target share kind of guy. We know he can give you over the top. And if he's going to win over the top, it's going to open things up for this offense. And the way that this offense is designed to be run first, the plays over the shot, the take the ball over the top shots, they're going to be very, very critical to this offense. And when you're hitting them, man, it's very, very hard to stop this offense. We know Terry can do it. We know Daomi Brown can do it. For the first time since 2024, you have somebody behind each player in this wide receiver room that can give you something that the other player in front of them can give you. Terry McLaurin, he can do the underneath work, the nasty work, while Antonio Williams and Treylon Burks can do all the same thing. Terry McLaurin can route you up in the mid-level of the offense. Well, Antonio Williams and Luke McCaffrey can give you that same thing. We started to see Luke McCaffrey start to get the over-the-top shots, not because he's creating separation, but because he can create with his size and his body and box guys out. I expect to see an improvement from him in his third year, because this was the year that it was always supposed to kind of start to click and come together for Luke McCaffrey. Not saying he's a finished product. Year 4, year 5, year 6 can be even better than year 3, but this was the year that he has to show the signs of all the growth. Well, for what you were expecting, a quarterback that was 1 year wide receiver at the level of Rice when you drafted him in the 4th round. This is the year that you need to start to see them things start to come to fruition. And it's, like I said, it's not going to be a finished product, but you need to see that from him. It's development, man. I mean, development is the name of the game for these players, man. You draft and develop. That is how you win. You know, you're going to supplement your roster with free agency and trades and things like that. And like, yes, if you're making a trade and it's a higher end player, yes, that guy's in your long-term plans. But that is a key piece that you're already stepping in. You're expecting a certain type of, return on. We didn't get that from Marshawn Lattimore. We did get it from Deebo Samuel. We did get it from Laramie Tunsil, especially Laramie Tunsil. I mean, he's a top 3 tackle in the NFL. I mean, however you want to rank them. I mean, Rashawn Slater, Penny Sewell, Lane Johnson, Laramie Tunsil. I mean, like, however you want to rank them. I mean, Trent Williams is still up there. But when you added Laramie Tunsil, man, it was a very, very high impact addition for this team. A true blue level player. Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, is a true blue level player. I think Terry McLaurin is right there as a all day red, I mean, with blue level upside, and I mean, he plays like a blue level player. Sonny Styles, I mean, you drafted this guy to be a blue. I think you're going to get blue level player by the time you're talking about year 2, year 3 for this guy, and I think you're going to see the blue level upside for this guy. I think he's going to be an instant red for this team. Everything is inconclusive right now, so you can talk about it being a yellow. Rookies are always yellows coming in, things like that. Antonio Williams could be a yellow, but you could be talking about this guy by week 8 being an impact red for this team. But that's where grading is it just comes in. I mean, realistically, it takes 3 years to give a conclusive, finalized grade, unless somebody comes in and they're just like Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase and things like that. But I expect Antonio Williams and Sonny Styles to both have a key impact on this team, and I also expect that out of Katron Allen and things like that. The kicker competition that we got going on with our undrafted free agent signing out of Iowa, big leg. Everything you're hearing, man, didn't miss a kick in practice. Good from 53. Talking about the ball carrying from 60, 70. That's what you'd like to hear, man. Can the accuracy be there for this guy? Can he excel to the NFL level? I mean, we know Jake Moody has a leg too, man, but I mean, the consistency hasn't always been there with him. That's why he's on his 3rd stop. And I'm pulling for Jake Moody, but ultimately, man, may the best kicker win. And it's just nice to have 2 guys that can kick the ball deep, can kick the ball long. In today's NFL, all these kickers kicking the ball from 60 plus, the accuracy has to be there, man. And hopefully between one of these guys takes this role and handles this job in the way that Tress Way has, man. Like you want the kicker position to be, consistent, just like in the way of Tress Way. Spencer, the Michigan State free safety, I'm very, very curious to see how he looks, because I think he is the one true free safety player on this roster. I know he's an undrafted free agent, but, again, Henry, the running back out of UTSA, undrafted free agent, rookie running back. I did an undrafted rookie segment after the draft, after we had made our signings. I expect some of these guys to be contributors, man. I think whether it's special teams this year, there's some real skill sets from some of our undrafted free agents, man. I'm very, very excited to see how they go. I'm excited to see some of last year's undrafted free agency players and see how they do as well. So again, man, from the Blue Chip Podcast, this is the day 1 report from the OTAs. Like I said, I wanted to get that little Q&A, and I appreciate anybody that wants to leave a comment on my YouTube page and things like that. I like being interactive, man. So any comments, questions, anything you want to hear, I'll get it on the show. Like I said, I want to be interactive, man. That's something I've really wanted to prioritize. That's why I'm going to do it first on every show. For any questions that are left to me, any comments, whatever it is, I'm going to talk about them on the pod, man. Like I said, man, I appreciate anybody that takes their time out to watch. This is Commanders coverage. Obviously, today I'm going to get more into the draft, especially as the football season gets here. I got a lot of reports that I'm doing right now on players lining up my big board for the for going into the season. All that work, it doesn't start this year. It starts It starts every year. So again, it's just a lot of work going into it. I'm going to get them college episodes between OTAs and training camp and things like that. I'll get the college football season pretty much lined up underway and get that to you guys. So again, from the Blue Chip Podcast, I hope you guys have a blessed week. I'll get to you guys the practice reports from today, tomorrow, going into Friday, things like that. So from the Blue Chip Podcast, man, have a blessed week. Stay safe.